So our final speaker in this segment will adopt a different perspective. She's not going to be speaking about one sector, but a whole range of sectors which are regulated. And she won't be describing something which is already in place, but describing a project which is currently in progress and which we hope might be influenced a little bit by this event. So please would you welcome Claire Simpson, who's Director at the UK Regulators Network.
I thought I would start quickly by introducing the UK Regulators Network to anybody who's not familiar with it. We were established about 3 years ago. It's a network of 13 of the economic regulators, including the 5 large infrastructure regulators, the FCA, and a number of other regulators who use economic tools in the way that they regulate the sectors that they're responsible for. What we do as an organisation is look at opportunities to do collaborative pieces that look at cross-sector issues. We're all very different. We have different functions, different statutory formations. We manage very different sectors, from some purely monopoly sectors all the way through to very competitive sectors. But we still think that there are some quite significant overlaps in the work that we do. So good examples of this that are not consumer-based are around price controls, things like the cost of capital. And obviously in the consumer space, there's quite a lot there that we could look at. So historically, we've looked at vulnerable consumers, and we're doing some more work on that at the moment. We've also looked at issues around consumer switching. So we recently published a paper on the price comparison website, which is feeding into the work that the CMA are undertaking. The other area that we think we could really add benefit as a network is engagement. So this is encouraging internal engagement across the network, looking for areas of specialisms where we can share best practice, share knowledge and information that we're all working on in our individual organisations, and externally, so engage in these kind of events, but also with also partner with external bodies to be able to bring in different perspectives into the regulatory discussions. So as Roger said, we are looking at consumer engagement in regulated sectors, and I think that the reason that we think that this is so important is that since privatisation, consumer expectations of regulated sectors have changed significantly, and we certainly think that this plays to the view that consumer legitimacy in these sectors is critically important. We see that that pervades all areas of our lives now, from politics through to the services that we receive, from health all the way through to utilities that we have delivered to our homes. And I think that's reflected in the work that a number of different people are doing in this area. So the fantastic work of ESAN, and the work that Sustainability First and the new PIN have done. Also the range of academic views that are out there at the moment. So we thought quite hard about what we could contribute as regulators into this discussion and what UKRN could deliver as a project. And what we think would be potentially really valuable is to look at the different models of engagement and the levers and the policy approaches of different regulators, and how those different levers can be pulled for different sets of circumstances and different sectors. So what we do recognise is that although there are similarities, there are a lot of different areas. So market structure plays a particularly important role. There are very competitive sectors where potentially consumer engagement comes through different routes, like competition and your ability to switch, through to monopoly sectors where potentially an intervention by a regulator or setting the right incentives for providers to establish their own series of consumer engagement like CCGs is the more appropriate option. So what we're looking to do is embed the consumer voice in all areas of the regulated sectors, but look at which tools would be most appropriate in different circumstances. Another good example of this, which has already been raised by the previous 2 speakers, is geography. So sometimes you're looking at regional monopolies where consumer engagement might be very focused on localised issues, to companies who have a customer base that's UK-wide and may have different types of consumers within that group and need to address their needs in different ways. So specifically relevant to this discussion, and I don't propose to spend very much time on this because there are 2 people far more qualified than me on the panel to talk about this, is where there is the opportunity for consumers to challenge the decisions about the service that they receive or provider-led engagement. a lot of this is covered in the very excellent ESAN paper and also set out on the slide in front of me. What we're doing at the moment is looking at where we can share best practice around this, and a number of the challenges and opportunities have already been raised by the previous speakers. Issues with scope, the role and responsibilities between CCGs, consumer groups, the regulators, potential issues around asymmetry of information and being able to benchmark the company that CCG is responsible for against the rest of the sector, and the role and intervention of the regulator, where the regulator considers there may be a potentially better outcome for consumers in the longer term. I think what we're particularly interested in, and I should say we're running this project jointly with Which, who are also interested in this point, is the applicability of consumer challenges outside of the price control process. So we've heard a really fantastic example of this today, but we've been exploring whether some of the principles and models of the provider-led engagement could be applicable more widely. I don't propose to cover anything else more in detail because I'm sure a lot of it would come out in the Q&A session that we'll have now. But I just want to put one UKRN caveat and put my regulatory colleagues on notice that I'm certainly not here as a representative of all of the regulators, and I definitely don't have the answers for everyone. So if we do get any specific questions, you're on warning. I may direct them at you instead.